We continue to follow breaking news out of the association here on HQ. The latest coming from Charlotte. The Hornets locking up Lamelo Ball, 5-year extension worth up to $260 million. It's coming from multiple reports. The Hornets selected Ball with a 3rd overall pick in the 20 NBA draft since then. The accolades have been piling up. Rookie of the Year, All-Star Game in 22. Lamelo averaged a career-high 23 points and 8.5 helpers per game this past season. I'm Tommy Tran, back here with Brad Botkin, and we welcome in our insider, Bill Reiter. Bill, I'm going to give you first word here. What more can you tell us about the Hornets locking up Lamelo long-term?
Just this is the obvious move, the move they had to do. Obviously, LaMelo's had some issues staying healthy, to say the least. I know I sound like a broken record here, but when you're in a market like Charlotte and you have a player like LaMelo Ball, what we've seen from him when he's been on the floor has been nothing short of sensational. You pay the man his money. You make sure he's there for the long term. You hope that he can be healthy. And you try, if you're Mitch Kupchak and the rest of that front office, to find a way to build on him going forward. This was absolutely expected around the NBA, and just another reality in the business of trying to build a winner now. If you're lucky enough to find a star, especially in one of these markets, even if, and we've seen this in New Orleans, he has trouble staying healthy, you got to pay him, you got to keep him, you got to hope for the best going forward.
Yeah, Bill's right. And this is the unspoken reality in the NBA. He's dead on about the market. If this is a different situation, maybe you think differently because of the fact that he hasn't stayed healthy. Maybe you think differently about drafting Scoot Henderson. But no, they go with Brandon Miller because it fits better with LaMelo Ball, because you cannot let a player of this caliber go when you're lucky enough to get your hands on him in a town like Charlotte, in a small market like that. Frankly, they were lucky to get him in the first place. I'm a Warriors guy. I'm a Northern California guy, and the Warriors should have taken him at number 2. They took James Wiseman. He slipped to the Hornets, and when you get that kind of luck, you don't let it go. This doesn't surprise me at all. I think one thing I would mention, one little fear that the Hornets have to have, is the whole Ben Simmons effect, where you sign that max rookie extension, you get your money, and then a year or two in, the trade demands come. And so I think the clock is on the Hornets. It is no longer a situation with these players where you say, oh, we've got them long term, we can take our time. That's not really the case anymore in the NBA. The Hornets have to build moving forward, and we're already seeing reports that they're considering putting out an offer sheet to Grant Williams from the Boston Celtics. They're trying to build a team that can compete now because they know that they can't wait around and think they've got LaMelo Ball on the line. A trade demand can come at any time. That's the reality.
And to follow up on that, given Charlotte situations, guys, again, Bill, I'll give you a first word here on this thought. Ownership changes coming, obviously. Then you have now a core of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier. What's the outlook for Hornets? Like, give me something for Hornets fans here with this latest news and what it means for the upcoming season.
You got it. And Brad, you made me laugh. I know you're a Warriors guy. I didn't want to bring up that James Wiseman situation, another blemish on the now exited Myers. Look, here's the good look. I'm a child of Michael Jordan. I grew up in that part of the country, and it pains me to say the obvious, but Michael Jordan has been nothing short of an atrocious owner. And I can talk to you, having talked to sources, stories about Jordan going into the draft room, the war room, just before the draft. This is a true story. And pointing at people that he didn't know what they did. And one person was an intern, and the intern gave a response, and it swayed Jordan a little bit in a decision a few years ago. So to answer your question, Tommy, is that Michael Jordan selling this team is great news, presuming the right owner comes in and they put in an infrastructure and a process that's a little more professionally run. Brad's right. There's no such thing as a long-term contract for a team. There is for a player. If LaMelo Ball's not happy in a couple years, he can certainly ask to force his way out. Brandon Miller's going to need to be as advertised. They're going to have to make some progress, but they have a nice young core. They're obviously fairly ambitious for a team with the market size that they have, and the fact that Jordan's going away. And again, I love Mike, the player. I grew up on Jordan, but the fact he will not be in charge of that organization is nothing short of excellent news for fans of that team.
And Bill, what's crazy is, and maybe this speaks a little bit to kind of what's going on behind the scenes in Charlotte, but Michael Jordan, news comes out that he's selling the team, but then reportedly he has one of the biggest voices in who they draft at number 2. That didn't make any sense to me at the time, but he was pretty heavily in favor of Brandon Miller. Look, that Brandon Miller pick now becomes a really, really big deal. That's the crossroads, because you knew they were going to sign LaMelo Ball. And the truth is, if you go ask around the league, pretty much everybody had Scoot Henderson as a guy who's a #1 draft pick in any draft that doesn't include Victor Wembanyama. They make the Miller pick specifically because it fits with Ball. And so that whole organization now was on the clock, and they made a crossroads decision from a franchise perspective with the voice of Michael Jordan, who, to Bill's point, is not going to be the voice moving forward. That was very surprising to me.
And as we wrap things up, Bill, final word on that, in case anything you want to respond to what Brad had there.
No, I think that's absolutely right. Now, it's worth saying, Brad's right. The majority of people across the NBA absolutely view Henderson as a #1 pick in most drafts. There are people out there and some good decision makers who love Brandon Miller and love what he brought to the table. And so it's not that there was a huge drop-off. This was a 3-player draft, right? There was one guy at the top in Wemby, and then the other 2 guys at 2 and 3. But Brad is right. Michael Jordan, as I understand it, and it's certainly been widely reported, retained decision-making power over that pick. That said, Mitch Kupchak has a really good track record of success in the draft, going back to his time with the Lakers. And I do think it's the right decision and the right pick because they're planned, and they don't have a choice, as we discussed. Lamelo Ball has to be the future of this team and organization, and you're not going to bring in someone who plays that position, no matter how heavily touted he is, especially when, at least for now, he can't shoot, to be the person you pair with him. So I like the Brandon Miller pick. So do other people I've talked to, but it is as Brad said, it's a ticking clock now. This is a situation where it has to work because there is not patience in small markets for players who are there.
And we'll end it with that. Bill Reiter and Brad Botkin, appreciate you jumping on with the breaking news. By the way, with the Sacramento Kings snapping their 16-season playoff drought, the Hornets are now the longest in the NBA with active droughts at 7 years. Another thing here as we end this segment, 1,000 rebounds and 1,000 assists before the age of 22. It's LeBron, it's Luka, and it's LaMelo.